Good afternoon and welcome to the official What the Heck Do I Do with My Time Now episode of the Greg Tompsett Sports Show. We are now one day past the wrap up of the NFL draft and in the unenviable position of now having a long, dark 4 months with no football. We have some mini camps. We've got like 2 whole months before even training camp comes back. That's gonna be late. So long, long time. So today I am going to go through some high level thoughts on the Buffalo Bills draft class. Obviously, I will talk more about that Wednesday night with Aaron, so I'll save a little bit for there. A few things on some upcoming dates and times of what's there. And then I want to go through some of the other draft classes, just because obviously so much of our content is very Bill centric. I want to go through some of the other classes and where things really stood out to me and I thought were interesting or good values or really questionable values. I'll maybe make fun of a couple teams. Um, so first, I'm going to jump right off and start with the Buffalo Bills. Thank you. A lot of people have been very, very kind in the chat, already sending nice birthday messages. It has been a wonderful day. We had a very happy birthday party with my for my son yesterday. We had a Winnie the Pooh party. It was great. And today is our actual birthday. Both my son and myself, we share a name and a birth date. So just kind of a fun little tidbit in our life. And today we're having a very relaxed, just hangout day. So it was a wonderful weekend. Thank you for all the very kind messages. Lots of people wish me and my son a happy birthday. I appreciate that very much. Um, so looking at the Bills class, it's really going to come down to just a couple things here. In that the the class itself is going to be judged on the players that are there. And I put out a tweet last night that year after year, we do so much research and prep, and Aaron and I try to wait. We try not to like get into it way too early because ultimately, right now is what matters. I now need to learn more about these 10 football players and their backgrounds, their fit, their skill sets, their strengths and weaknesses, how they fit on the team, and then be able to share that with you guys. So we have good analysis to share. But you can't help yourself. Like we go back and we want to try to guess and figure out who they're going to pick. And I'll point out a couple guys. Aaron and I talked about Cole Bishop, we talked about Dwayne Carter. I listed Ray Davis in my big thick running backs that I wanted. When Joe Marino was on, we talked about Edifuan Ulfoshio as a super athletic special teams linebacker. So there were some that were whatever you want to call it, a hit or something like that. But so many of them were not. And so many of them were guys that I very specifically wanted in spots where we had a chance to take them. I did my whole thing on I just want a receiver named Xavier. Well, we literally had the 2 picks where the guys named Xavier went in the first round, and we passed on both of them. So I'm going to give this example along with what I've kind of done to just grasp and take in the meaning of what these things are. And ultimately, Brandon Beane addressed every position that I wanted. I wanted wide receiver. I wanted interior offensive line. I wanted D tackle and D end. I wanted a thick running back. I wanted a safety. I wanted a pass rusher. Like he checked every box. I talked about, hey, later on, if we get a backup nickel or a punt returner, that would be great. If we get a project tackle with lots of big traits and long arms, like that, he addressed every single spot that I wanted addressed. So how can I be mad when I look back in the lens of all the chance of, oh, we took the wrong Josh because people wanted Rosen instead of Josh Allen. Aaron jokes all the time of turning to Eric after the Taron Johnson pick and saying, who the hell is this guy? Well, who did we just take? I was furious that we took, James Cook in the second round. I couldn't believe we took Terrell Bernard as a day 2 pick. I was sure that Matt Milano wasn't even the best linebacker we took in the 5th round that year. I thought he was the second best 5th round linebacker that we drafted that year. So I don't know how many of these examples I need to see to remember that this isn't like me trying to pretend to be falsely humble about it. It's everyone's bad at this. The best GMs, like I use the example all the time, pretty universally, Howie Roseman is considered the best GM in the NFL. And I agree with that. I think he is. He also took Jalen Reagor 1 pick before Justin Jefferson. Like, this shit's hard. This is really, really hard, and we're never gonna get all the things right. So, did the Bills take the guys that I wanted at the spots that we did? No, they didn't. There are guys that I thought we should have taken more. I like Keon Coleman. I thought we were a little early. I like Cole Bishop. I thought we were a little early. I thought we got a great value on Dwayne Carter. I liked Ray Davis. I would have liked it more if it was in the 5th round. Javon Solomon. I thought we got a great value on him. Cedric Van Pran. I think that's pretty universally a great value. Most had him as like a late 3rd rounder. We got him in the 5th. Like there were some good values. There were guys that I liked that we had. We drafted a guy who's never played a football game in his entire life. We picked a guy who's a rugby player who's a freak athlete. Wait till you see the clips of Travis Clayton at 6'7", 308 pounds, running a 4.8 140. It's a freak of an athlete. So ultimately, so much of it is simply going to come down to, is Keon Coleman the guy? And he wasn't my choice at that spot. I did have him. I think I think he was like 3 guys later. So he was on my list. I liked him. He was on my list of players that I was interested in. I would have taken Worthy, Leggett, McConkey, before him. But again, he was on my list. So I'm not going to be disingenuous and say I didn't like him. What it ultimately comes down to is, if he was their guy at pick 28, all that's going to matter is he good or not? Because if he's good, then that was a brilliant pick. And all they did was trade down twice. And the 2 trade downs, if you put them together, the 2 trade ups and swap arounds of what they did, they basically, those 2 trade downs, they netted the 3rd round pick that we used for Dwayne Carter for free. So if you were going to pick Coleman anyways at 28, which I'm taking that decision aside, I'm not debating whether that was the right decision. None of us know if that was the right decision. We will find that out once we see them play. I already said it's not who I would have taken. But if they were already sold that Keon Coleman was the right decision at 28 and they were going to take him anyways, well, then trading down twice and getting Dwayne Carter for free is just good business. So I'm not going to sit here and say, well, he didn't take the names of the guys that I want, so this is a bad draft. I'm going to try to just take a step back and say, hey, we didn't overstep. He didn't trade up once the entire day. He traded back, I think, ultimately 4 times between the different trades that he did. He picked up additional value. With the additional value he picked up, he addressed every single position that I wanted addressed. They weren't the names that I would have picked, but he picked the positions that I wanted addressed. So if he traded down, which shows you they're not being, the hubris of like, no, I know who the best guys are. He's playing the value game. He picked up a valuable top 100 pick to get an impactful guy. I think Dwayne Carter is going to be a fan favorite. He's going to be a nice, impactful player. They addressed all the positions that we wanted addressed, and he picked up a nice future 2025 4th from Chicago, which will probably be, a top 115 pick, probably right around there, 115. That's good business. That's simply the right way to run things. So I'm going to try to take a step back and not get frustrated that they didn't take the names of the players that I wanted, but appreciate the fact that he made good business decisions. He moved back in picking up more value and addressed the positions I wanted. And now I'm going to wait and see if those were the right names. So the couple things that come up, just some other Bills questions that had been in here before I go around to some of the other teams that I really, really liked. And I think Sespinar here had a really good one. Are Coleman and Carter together a better value than the names that I did? Well, absolutely. That's crazy to not to acknowledge that when we look back. But again, I can't even say crazy. If Keon Coleman's good, this is a slam dunk, easy decision. If he ends up not being good, no, it'll look stupid because then it'll be, oh man, you could have had insert whatever wide receiver looks awesome. So if Xavier Leggett blows up with Carolina, which honestly probably did us a favor sending him to Carolina with Bryce Young, maybe he's not going to have a chance to be as good as he would have been. The name that everybody's going to watch is, the next time Xavier Worthy has an 80-yard highlight, which I have bad news for you guys. He has Andy Reid as an offense coordinator, Patrick Mahomes as a head coach. He's going to have some highlight plays. We'll see how sustainable he is. We'll see if that 169-pound frame translates. I was willing to gamble on it here in Buffalo, but that's ultimately what that's going to come down to is that value. So if Coleman looks good, getting Dwayne Carter for free is going to look like really, really smart business. So I'm very, very open to that. Again, we stacked up some future picks. I forgot a couple of the moves yesterday. I had done a list, but we have at least 10, maybe 11 future picks, including 2 seconds, 3/4, because we'll have the fourth rounder from Chicago and the fourth round comp pick for Gabe Davis. We'll probably have 2/5. We did give away a sixth in one of the pick swaps and a future seventh in one of the pick swaps. So I listed out multiple where towards the tail end, I think I listed 13 at one point. It's 10 for sure. I have a feeling we're going to end up with a third, sixth round pick in the comp pick formula once the final values net out, but we'll see where that goes. It might get us the seventh back or the sixth back, but I think the bar is going to end up going above Austin Johnson and he's going to fall off that equation, but we'll see when all that happens. Um, Ultimately, we're going to have plenty of ammo in the future. So at least 10 picks. At a bare minimum, we have 10 draft picks already for 2025. That's great, including 2 seconds, 3/4, 2/5. That's a really good chunk of value. Um, then you go into some of the salary cap money. I know a lot of people are already banking on, oh, we're definitely making a veteran wide receiver trade when the Trey White money comes up. It's possible. It's possible that we make a trade after that Trey White money comes up. I think it's less of a sure thing than people assume. They have some moves to make. They got to, they need 2 million for the draft picks. They probably need to keep 5 or 6 million set aside for in-season moves. So we actually probably have like 6 or 7 million to work with. So if that means we sign I don't know, DJ Chark or Odell Beckham Jr. or Hunter Renfro, that makes sense to me. Maybe it is a trade for a Cortland Sutton or a Tyler Lockett. I don't think it's a Brandon Ayuk or a T Higgins or a Debo Samuel move. I just don't see that. But we'll see. We'll see when that comes. We'll follow that as we get into June. Without further ado, I am going to go through some of the teams that I thought had either a really good draft or a draft I just want to talk about. I'll start with the good. I'm just going to go alphabetically. This is not in a ranking. I didn't want to have to jump back and forth through the listing here. So some of this is just in the order that the teams are listed. Arizona crushed it. Really, really nice draft. So obviously being in the position of picking fourth in a historically deep quarterback draft and picking fourth when you already have a quarterback in a historically deep quarterback draft means they got a number one overall pick talent with Marvin Harrison Jr. at the fourth pick and just gift that to Kyler Murray. That is fantastic business. That is just really, really good. Darius Robinson is a guy that we liked a lot for the Bills as a possibility just because his flex between being a strong side defensive end or a three-tech defensive tackle. Max Melton is a nice player that we like. Trey Benson, a lot of people had as their number one running back in the draft. Dadrian Taylor Demerson is a guy, you saw Steve Mathis on Air Raid Hour, just rave about as a rangy athletic safety. Christian Jones falling all the way to the late fifth as a tackle was a really, really good pick. So Arizona won through quantity because they had 2 firsts, a second, 4 third round picks, a fourth, 2/5. Austin Fort's made a ton of trades over the last little bit here. So good for him to accumulate a bunch of talent. This is a team that I could see making a sizable jump this next year because they kind of surprised some people last year. I mock Jonathan Gannon. I do think he's a weirdo, but he got the team to play hard for him. And they just got a serious injection of talent here in this draft. So shout out to the Cardinals, looking really, really good. Let's go the other direction. What the hell did the Falcons do? This is one of the most perplexing decisions I can remember in draft history. If you guys remember back to the Jacksonville year when Blake Bortles was a borderline first round pick and then ended up going whatever Jacksonville took him second or third overall. Michael Penix Jr. not only eighth overall, you see whatever ESPN's ranking, I don't care about individually, but this is pretty much consensus was I didn't see anybody having him above 25th. He was on consensus 32, 33, 34. ESPN had him 43. They took him eighth overall. They took him eighth overall after having JJ McCarthy still on the board. So they could have just taken JJ McCarthy, who's 4 years younger than Michael Penix Jr. And I say the age thing because they took Michael Penix Jr. eighth overall after giving Kirk Cousins $100 million in guaranteed money. In case anyone's not familiar with how the rules of guaranteed contracts work in the NFL, guaranteed contracts in the NFL you have to put the cash in escrow. So it's not like Arthur Blank can just be like, oh, as the NFL pays me money, I'll give some of that money to Kirk Cousins. No, he had to go into his checking account, or I'm being a little facetious, into the working cash capital of the Atlanta Falcons and take $100 million of that and put it into escrow. 5 weeks later, his general manager looked him in the eye and said, "Hey, we're going to draft a quarterback 8th overall." So as an owner, you may have been, thinking to go back and be like, oh, are you taking the 20-year-old guy from Michigan who is really similar to Kirk Cousins and can probably develop over the first 2 or 3 years, and then we get ready to play him when he's 24 years old and coming into there, and we've kind of moved on from Kirk, and Kirk Cousins has raised the floor of the franchise, and they said, no, 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 no. We're going to take the 24-year-old quarterback coming off 2 ACL surgeries, so that by the time that we're done with the guarantees and we can actually play Michael Penix Jr., he's 27 or 28. That's what we're going to do after you just put $100 million into escrow. Um, it's one of the most mind-boggling decisions I've ever seen. I cannot believe that they invest. Quarterback's the most important position in sports. So, you can make the argument, can you possibly overinvest in quarterback? The Atlanta Falcons just put that to the test, because spending $100 million in a free agent and the 8th overall pick in the same offseason is an all-time record of investment at quarterback. So can't wait to see where that one goes. Also, just some of the other decisions. I liked Ruke, mostly because it's fun to say his name. He was not the 35th overall prospect in the draft. That was insane. They traded away a 3rd-round pick to be able to go up and get a guy who, by almost every other draft board, would have been available with that 3rd-round pick that they gave away. So, just a really rough day for Atlanta. We'll see where that one goes. Yeah, it's just boggles the mind. Boggles the mind. Chicago, I'm not going to give like a ton of extra credit. It's like, hey, taking Andrew Luck when you have the number 1 pick, taking Trevor Lawrence when you have the number 1 pick, taking Joe Burrow when you have the number 1 pick. So, one, good job not messing it up or trying to get cute. They took, regardless of whether you think Caleb Williams is going to work out or not, he is pretty universally regarded as generational talent, whatever you want to call it. He's certainly going to be a very, very good player, and I am a believer that his skill set is absolutely going to translate, and it's going to work out really, really well for Chicago. So I think that's exciting. I was curious if they went the path of offensive tackle at number 9 instead of Rome Odunze, but I like the fact that they really went heavy, because now you're talking Rome Odunze on one side, DJ Moore is on the other. DJ Moore is better suited to be a really, really good high-end 1B. So one, he gives Odunze a little bit of a on-ramp to get ready. Plus, if Odunze is what everybody thinks he is, now DJ Moore is a high-end 1B, which is great. And you have no pressure on Keenan Allen just being the safety blanket for Caleb Williams on every 3rd and 5, because that man's going to get open until he's 40 years old. But now you invested in him, but you're not over committing that his age and his health will be a backbreaker if you lose him. So I just thought really, really smart deal by them. They then also still added offensive line. A lot of people liked Amagaje in the flexibility. Some people think he could kick into guard. A lot of people like him as a tackle, but he had a lower end of you know opponent play when he played at Yale. So obviously you're still projecting what that's going to look like, but a lot of people like this guy as a talent. Also, it's really nice that the pick that the Bills traded, they basically got their future 4th-round pick. They did a nice job. Austin Booker was a nice player. I actually like Javon Solomon a little bit more than Austin Booker. So the Bills got a future 4th-round pick and got the pass rusher that I would have wanted with this pick anyway. So I was pretty happy with that. But ultimately, I thought Chicago did a nice job. And a lot of times, half of success is just not messing up the easy stuff. I was really happy to see that Chicago did not mess up the easy stuff. The next one I wanted to highlight here was the Raiders. When's the last time that we talked about a Raiders draft class blowing people away? This is just good work. So not getting cute with the fact that, well, we already have Michael Mayer. Maybe we don't want Brock Bowers. I want to give credit. I think it might have been Ben Solak. But I'll have to think about it. It might have been Austin Gale. One of the guys at the Ringer made a really good point that the Brock Bowers pick is made better by having Michael Mayer, because now the last thing you wanted was Brock Bowers to go to a Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman situation where they try to turn him into a hand in the dirt guy, blocking 50% of his snaps. Because he's a phenomenal athlete. He's a freak athlete. You want him to be used as a Dalton Kincaid, as a Travis Kelsey, as a like flex slot receiver who just has big position matchups but can also run by guys. Well, when you already have Michael Mayer, you take away that temptation because, of course, you're going to want to play Michael Mayer. So now having two tight end sets with Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers, but still having Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers outside, just what a nice job. You then add that with a guy who was pretty much universally seen as a first round pick. You got Jackson Powers Johnson, 44th, as a starting center going forward. Great investment there. Add in more blocking with Delmar Glaze, who just has a phenomenal name. Delmar Glaze is just an awesome offensive line name. If Vegas area donut shops don't already have a sponsorship deal in place with Delmar Glaze, that's just their fault. That's their bad. And then you have some later guys, Tommy Eichenberg. Dylan Laub is a guy that I really like as a like passing back, Danny Woodhead type guy that can be just a receiving back out of the backfield. And then two of Aaron and I's favorite day 3 DBs. They got both Trey Taylor and MJ Devonshire out of Pittsburgh and Trey Taylor out of Air Force. Guys who I think, even though they're 7th rounders, will make that roster. So shout out to the Raiders. Shout out to our guy, Greg Vorse. Really nice job there. I'm going to go through some of the division ones, whether they would have made my list or not, just so people can see my thoughts. Annoyingly, 2 of them did a really nice job. I'm annoyed. And I say nice job because they picked guys that I like. What the hell do I know? Let's hope I'm wrong, because the Dolphins picked a bunch of guys that I like. They were a little early on Chop Robinson. I thought 21 was a little early, but obviously I liked him. I think he has the chance to be a bendy, productive guy. I will say it is funny. We picked a guy in the 5th round who had 32 sacks the last 3 years, and they picked a guy 21st overall who I think had like 8 sacks the last 3 years. So maybe production will end up mattering more than what we think. So I'm going to pray that we got the more productive guy, and that translates in the NFL. Patrick Paul is a mountain of a human. Jalen Wright, because of course they picked an insanely fast running back, because of course they did. That's just what they do. Mo Kamara, a guy who was right there. I actually had him a small notch ahead of John Solomon. They're very similar. They're both like 6-foot, long-armed, whirling dervishes that are pass rush specialists. So I'm happy we got one, but I would have been happy with Mo Kamara as well. Malik Washington, a receiver that I had been kind of pounding the table for, just because when you're 5'9", 190, but you get the stamp of approval from Steve Smith, I'm down. Anybody that Steve Smith vouches for that is his same dimensions. I'm ready to sign off on that. And then I like that they also added Taj Washington on in the 7th round, because just an easy guy there. So I'm kind of annoyed that I think the Dolphins had a nice draft class, but what am I going to do? Another one, probably even better. I really hate that the Patriots had such a good draft class. We'll see. I think Drake May was the 2nd best quarterback in this class. I really wanted Washington to pick him because I wanted what I think is a fragile player in Jaden Daniels. I just see so much Robert Griffin III. I think there's a chance that Jaden Daniels wins Rookie of the Year this year. I think he's going to run for a ton of yards, throw a bunch of bombs to Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin, and it's going to look really fun. And then sometime in the next 2 to 3 years is going to get hit too many times and break down, just like Robert Griffin III. I just do not think he's built for sustainability in the NFL. But when he's healthy, it's going to be a ton of fun. I won't lie, I kind of wanted to watch that happen in New England. Instead, they get a guy that I think has a lower floor, lower floor performance-wise. I don't think Jaden Daniels has much of a chance at all that he's going to be a bad player. I just don't know if he can stay healthy. Drake May, I don't know how good he's going to be, because he has some legit accuracy issues, but he's also 6'4", probably going to be able to carry 230 pounds. And they gave him Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. I hate that so much. Like, I can't even describe how much I hate. Like, 2 of my favorite value guys in the draft, they went a little early on Jalen Polk. I liked him because I thought the Bills could get him at pick 60. So picking him, that early, I don't think is anything amazing. But Javon Baker, I loved in the 4th round. Stacking those two together with Drake May, they got a nice tackle at Caden Wallace. I don't know if he's ready to start right off the bat. So I think New England's still going to be ugly this year and not have a good team. But I hate that they laid the foundation for what could be a point where they turn around and get back to relevancy. I do not like that. I would have preferred that they just made stupid decisions. The Jets, I thought actually had a weirdly boring draft. I think they did a nice job. Olu Fashanu is exactly what they should have taken. Many people thought they were going to take Brock Bowers. Now adding a really good starting tackle, plus they traded for Morgan Moses and signed Tyron Smith. You now have 3 good tackles. You're in really good shape. You're not going to fall apart when one of Morgan Moses or Tyron Smith inevitably goes down. You now have the 11th overall pick to plug in, and obviously the future of one of your tackle spots there. So that was an annoyingly smart decision by the Jets. Malachi Corley's good. I think some people were really, really excited about him. Some people were a lot lower on him. We'll see what he turns out to be, but obviously there's no pressure on him because you have Garrett Wilson, you have Mike Williams. They're going to be just fine in that spot. Braylon Allen is a really smart pairing with Breece Hall, so having kind of the thunder to his lightning, and Braylon Allen's got some lightning to him as well. We'll see if Jordan Travis is ever healthy. And then I know a lot of Bills fans were aware of Toronto Argonauts player Quantois Stiggers. Just a guy who is a fun corner and did have a visit with the Bills, and just a very fun name to be able to look at. Probably my favorite draft of the entire draft is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They just let value come to them over and over and over again. So Troy Fautanu at one time talked about as a top 10 pick, easily a top 12, 15 pick. They get him at 20. Probably their starting center for the next decade, but can play guard, can play anywhere across the 3 interior spots, can even play tackle. They got Zach Frazier, who's even a better center. So now you can make sure that Fautanu plays guard. And now you have Zach Frazier, who's the 4-time state champion wrestler from West Virginia, where there's a ton of Steelers fans and everything coming across. And they got him at the 51st pick overall. He was getting to the point where I kind of thought the Bills were going to stumble into him at pick 60. I would have given up one of our later picks to just sneak up to 19 and be able to 51, 19th in the second round, to be able to snag Zach Frazier in the late second for the Bills. I would have loved if they had gone and done that. We got Cedric Van Pran later, who is just a small notch below there, but we got him 3 rounds later, so I'm not going to be upset. Roman Wilson is the most Steelers pick ever. Like, this is Hines Ward. This is Deontay Johnson if he wasn't a shithead. This is a guy who gets open, but also does all the dirty work blocking. And they got him like in the 20th pick of the 3rd round. Getting him 84th overall is exactly what the Steelers do over and over and over again. They find ridiculous value on day 2 at wide receiver and plug him in. Then you have who a lot of people thought was the number 1 overall linebacker that they got all the way down at like pick 100, the last pick of the 3rd round, which is just ridiculous value. They do it again. Mason McCormick in the 4th round, a guy that a lot of people like. So now their interior offensive line, if they just started 3 rookies, it would make sense. Zach Frazier at center and Fautanu and McCormick at each guard. They're going to protect Russell Wilson and keep him clean, which is what you need for a shorter quarterback and a guy who doesn't scramble as much as he used to. Logan Lee, a guy that Aaron loved the entire time, a defensive tackle. And then the one pick, I'm not familiar with Ryan Watts. I'm not familiar with his game. Every other pick, they knocked out of the freaking park. The Steelers look fantastic. I thought the Eagles, I think, did a lot of people would mention them. I didn't love the rest of their draft, but their first 2 picks were really nice. Getting Quinyon Mitchell at 22 is good value. Getting Cooper DeJean at 40 is also very good value. So fixing their secondary, boom, all in one shot. I didn't actually love the rest of their draft. I think I don't know that they got a value on anyone in any of the rest of their picks. But they crushed it on the first 2, and obviously Howie Roseman's an awesome GM, so I'm sure he did a nice job and picked some great players. So as we go through here, obviously just being able to be in a spot where, we are, waiting to see what the next steps are, what the things are with this draft, where it comes from. We'll be here with you the rest of this offseason, being able to give you our takes on how these guys fit in. We'll react to some of the UDFA signings. I do think there'll be a couple more signings. There's actually a pretty decent free agent list out there. I won't be shocked if we add a pass rusher, if we add another receiver. There's a couple spots where I could see us adding another piece or two. But we'll see where that goes here throughout the offseason. But thank you guys for jumping in here with me. Thank you very, very much for all the very kind birthday wishes for myself and my son. I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you guys for all your support. Watch for the Cover One Twitter feed. The rest of the day here today, I will be rolling out the winners of our One Pass contest. We'll be announcing the winner of our PlayStation 5, autographed Zach Moss jersey, a Josh Allen jersey, a Bills neon sign, a couple other goodies that we'll be sending out. I'll be announcing those later on today, reaching out to those users either on Twitter or in the Slack channel, and then getting your address to be able to ship the different pieces out. So keep an eye out for that later on today. Looking forward to finding out the fun winners of that contest. So thank you all very, very much. Appreciate it. On behalf of awesome producer Chris Seth and all of our staff here at Cover One, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to the Greg Tompsett Sports Show, and we are